So let me just eat some 제육볶음 while I talk. So you guys know right now I'm living in Texas. I'm attending a seminary. But you also know that I've lived in Korea, Uzbekistan, Ukraine, America, and Poland. All over the world, right? We call these kids TCKs, third culture kid. And the most awkward question you can ask the TCKs are, where are you from? Because I'm from everywhere. So to explain why I grew up as TCK is because my parents were missionaries. So that makes me an MK, missionary kid, but also TCK. So I was born in South Korea. I am South Korean, but I grew up in many other places, as I told you. And throughout these times, I was confused of my identity, the culture, you know. So I always ask my mom, so who am I? Where am I actually from? I know this might seem dumb to some people because, duh, your parents are Koreans and you're born in Korea, then you're Korean. But it's not just a normal foreign exchange student type of thing. You're an immigrant, but not a temporary, but permanent. If I grew up in just one country after that, after my birth country, my passport country, then it would have been fine. I would have been identifying myself in both cultures. But since it wasn't the case, it wasn't just one culture, it was just the whole world, I was confused. You might ask, well, there should be some strengths about being a TCK, right? You travel around the world, that's so good. Mm-hmm. It is great. You get to experience the cultures, the languages, the food. The food is amazing, guys. The local foods. The really good strength about TCKs is that they have a high adaptation. They're really good at adapting to a new culture. If I tell you a secret, there are people pleasers. Or they could be, most likely. Because they know exactly what you want. At first, speaking for myself, I am usually quiet and I observe the culture and how they talk, how they act, and like a sponge, I just absorb into that culture and just become one of them. But here's the thing, then you forget who you are, like who I am. Am I extrovert? Am I introvert? What am I? And I really think that TCKs could be more like philosophical and think more into their life and their being more than other people because it's just them and everything around them changes. Their friends, their house. So it's really hard to call somewhere a home, at least for me, in my case of TCK. There hasn't been a country where I lived straight more than 5 years. I've been traveling around, living around the world, and it might seem really weird, but I can't imagine living in one country forever and not living that country or state. And I don't know, that might cost a lot of budget and all that. And I know it might seem very unrealistic, but I'm born that way. No, I'm not born that way. I've been adapted that way. So a lot of people might think, oh, you must be rich to travel around the world, to live around the world. I'm sorry, but no. But how? How did I travel around the world and live all around the world without having that much money? That is a question. Honestly, it's all by God, all by God's grace. He helped me experience this all throughout, and I really glorify God about that. So then why am I talking about TCKs, the multicultural kids? Nowadays there's a lot of interracial marriage, intercultural marriage, and I really believe that these are the great time to talk about TCKs. So a lot of people, even in their households, because their parents are a different race, they struggle with the cultural identity. As a person who have been thinking about this for for 20 years, I've realized where to put my identity on, and I wanted to share that to you guys. You might say, what? What do you mean by that? How do you know your identity, culture identity? You don't even know how to answer where you're from or where's your home. Well, yeah, I still have hard times in that, but I'm settled on my identity. No matter where you're from, where you've grown up in, or what's your race, what's your gender, honestly, you're all the children of God, the child of God. And I identify myself as a child of God, and then I had no troubles. You might think it's very Christian to say that, but it's the truth. I only identify myself as a child of God. Nothing else. Where I live, who I'm with, which situation I'm in, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where I am or where I live or who I am. I've lived in a couple of, cities. I mean, most of the places I've grown up was city. Seoul in South Korea, Tashkent in Uzbekistan, Chicago and Warsaw in Poland, all these places, and Kiev in Ukraine. All these places were all cities, It might be some cities that everyone wants to go to live in. But at that time, I had a lot of anxiety and depression, and it didn't matter where I lived. It doesn't matter where I live if I have anxiety or depression. Everything is just a cloudy place, wherever you go. I began to realize where I am doesn't matter. Who I am and who I identify myself is more important than where I live or what kind of job, what kind of student I am. You can identify yourself as a daughter of your parents, as a student in your school or college. You can identify yourself as someone's friend. Yeah, you can do that. But that's not going to take you a long way until your death, You're not going to be a forever someone's something or forever a student or something. I wanted to identify myself something that is eternal, you know? And what is eternal? Well, that's a question, right? God is eternal. The kingdom of God is eternal. Heaven is eternal, right? And so is hell. But I identify myself as a child of God. I believe in Jesus Christ and I'm saved. That's my identity. It doesn't matter where I live, who I'm with. And I think that really set me free of living as a TCK. It's been really hard. I'm not gonna lie. I've been struggling with depression and anxiety. It's been really hard. But I just want to tell you that our identity is not on that, It's settled already. If you've been saved, if you believe in Jesus Christ, and has been saved, then your identity is already a child of God. So no, it doesn't matter if TCKs or not, like your identity is on that. So wherever I am, wherever I go, the only thing really truly matters is your relationship with yourself, but also your relationship with God, the eternal God, So you have eternal relationship with Him, then you will be set, There's nothing you should be afraid of. So I just want to say, whether you're TCKs or not, you identify yourself as something more eternal than just something that it's more temporary, Like, it's good that I'm eating this. It's delicious, But is it gonna last forever? No, it's gonna fill me up right now as a fuel for me to live. But, am I gonna rely on things that are gonna disappear like that? Although it tastes good right now, it's not forever. What should we rely on? That's my question for you guys. What should you believe? Something that's eternal? Something that's temporary?